guys, it's Joshua Reviews once again. So, I'd say we're about middle of the month. Halloween is it's coming. It's coming quick. So I gotta do these reviews quick. Okay. So for today, guys, I have a movie for you. A movie that I've been interested in watching, but never really got around to it because at the same time I wanted to watch it, but at the same time I didn't. It's kind of weird with this one. For one, the movie concept looked interesting. It looked really cool by the trailer, but a lot of people were saying, it's not what you're expecting. So I said, oh, okay. That movie, Fear Inc. So, as we're all aware of, extreme haunts exist. Obviously, you have McKamey Manor, which, look it up for yourself. You got other ones like the Blackout. You got other ones where you walk through the maze naked. One where they actually zap you, like ones that I certainly enjoy, the 17th Door, and other ones. You got extreme haunts everywhere, and I'm sure that there are places like this in real life. That being said, Fear Inc. is about a horror movie buff guy named Joe, and he loves horror movies. He's like a horror fanatic, and you instantly relate to him if you're a horror fan. He's not likable. He starts off kind of mean-spirited, kind of like a know-it-all, but you don't hate him because he does have a sense of charm to him. So I automatically was interested in invested in his character. But he gets a card at a restaurant or a haunt, I forgot, and it's Fear Inc. He calls up Fear Inc. and they're like, hey, if you want this extreme haunt experience, then you should call us. So he calls them, and one night when he's with his buddies and his girlfriend, Fear Inc. shows up. But at the same time, we don't know if it's Fear Inc. because he's drunk and he thinks it's fake. He thinks it's all acting and people start dying. And the whole movie, it's this guessing game whether or not it's real or fake. Similar to other horror films out there. Obviously, the one that I saw fairly recently was No Escape, where it makes you think that all this crazy shit is happening to our characters, and then at the very end, it's revealed what's actually happening, and it's left a guessing game. What's going on? Another one is obviously the movie April Fool's Day, where it's revealed at the end, spoiler alert, that it's all a prank. So I don't want to say whether or not this is this is all fake or real or not. I'm not going to reveal what the twist is in this movie, since the one thing I really did like about this film was it kept me guessing on whether or not it was real or not. Now, obviously, my suspicion was that it was all fake, that none of his friends were dying, none of the stuff that was happening was real, but I'm not going to say whether or not that was the case or not, because I did have a surprisingly good time with this film. I can totally understand where the negative reviews are coming from, and I'll get to that in a bit, but I did enjoy this film. It was entertaining. It did keep me engaged, and there was a lot of references to horror movies that I think a lot of horror fans would really enjoy. So what did I like? First of all, I mentioned earlier that our main character, Joey's a bit of a dick, but you kind of like him at the same time because he's very, pretentious. He thinks highly of himself. He puts himself before others, but you can kind of see over the course of the film, he learns how to, stick his neck out for his friends, and you're like, oh wow, there's some character growth that he's actually trying to, put aside his knowledge for horror movies and actually try to help his friends and try to figure out what's going on. And another thing is, the fact that this movie was not really that low budget. I mean, you can tell they had, not a high budget, but the fact that it looked like whatever money was thrown into this project, it was put on screen because the film looked good. The writing was surprisingly well done. And I gotta say, the film at some parts was a little, I don't want to say tense, but it was like, whoa, okay. It's just getting really interesting. It was pulling me in. And there were moments where I'm like, oh, if that's real, I don't want to see that person die. It was really interesting to see how the film progresses, especially in the story, and whether or not it was real or not. That is the one key thing that I feel like with a movie like this, it's kind of hard to pull off. It's like, okay, can you predict whether or not this is real or fake? Like there were moments where you can tell yourself, okay, that was fake. We didn't see that person do this, so you think in your head, oh yeah, it's fake. But then but then you're also thinking, wait, no, that other moment, like in the movie, that kind of contradicts that. So there's a lot of stuff sprinkled in that makes you really second guess yourself, wondering, is this real or is this fake? And obviously, my theory was that obviously it wasn't real. But like I said, I won't spoil anything because the movie does have a surprising twist that even got me like, whoa, okay, that's cool. I don't like I said, I don't want to say it, but So yeah, the characters were likable. The writing was surprisingly good. The film was well shot. I think executed. It was fairly well executed, and it did have. It never felt like it was like. It never. It felt like everything in the story that they wanted to tell, they got to tell it. It wasn't like one of those movies where it's like, oh, they had this cool concept, but in execution, they didn't take it like all the way. Like no, they executed it fairly well. The idea and concept, they executed everything really good. Okay, so that's about everything I have for the likes. I did say I did like this film, but let me go ahead and say the things I wasn't really too big a fan of. Because some of these things people might have an issue with. For one, this is a spoiler alert, so skip to the 7-minute time code if you don't want this major spoiler alert. Anyways, I'm going to spoil it in 3, 2, 1. This movie has a downer ending, and I'm talking really downer ending. So if you don't like that, you're not going to like this movie. Anyways, that's that. Anyways, so that was that spoiler. So yeah, there's a sex scene. I'm kidding. But no, for real though. There are some things in this movie that I could see not a lot of people enjoying. I said that, yeah, the movie was entertaining. It kept me guessing. But there were some scenes that kind of dragged. And there were some parts where I did kind of want to check out. Because, I'm not kidding you, there's a scene where the main character is going through the house. And, he's making all these jokes. And I'll get to that in just a second. And it didn't really feel like it was adding much. I feel like the first half was very slow. Like the one thing I do like is that the fact that we got to know our characters in the first half, but at the same time, nothing that was being said. It's cool if you're a horror fan because they're talking about all this horror movie knowledge, but none of it is really original. And I don't, like I told you, I don't care about originality, like as long as the movie's executed well, and it was. But there are some instances like here where it doesn't really feel like a lot's happening. And I almost checked out in the first half. But once shit started going down, I was like, okay, this is really pulling me in. This is really where it's getting good. But I mentioned earlier that, just a second ago, that the scene where he's walking around the house and it doesn't really add to anything. And he's cracking jokes to kind of make the scene feel more, This movie's labeled as a horror comedy, and yeah, it's a horror comedy, but most of the jokes didn't really work for me. I didn't really find it that funny. It wasn't like laugh out loud. There was maybe 1 or 2 jokes that made me laugh out loud, but that's about it. Like it's not like a Tucker and Dale or Final Girl situation or even Happy Death Day, one of those films. It's not like that. It's not a self-aware parody, and the movie kind of markets itself as that. And don't go into this movie thinking it's that, because it's not. It's really more like a horror movie with some dark comedy sprinkled in. So if you're looking for a horror comedy, I wouldn't go here because the jokes are hit or miss. For the most part, they didn't really work for me, but there were 2 laugh out loud jokes. One of which where the main character, Joe, shouts out, "You're really good actors!" That part just made me burst out laughing. So, movie wasn't too funny. Obviously, the thing I said at the 6-minute, the big spoiler, so, because I don't want to, anyone who skipped that, I don't want to spoil it, but that, it's whatever. So, little stuff like that was a problem, but nonetheless, I still did enjoy this movie. It was flawed, but I did enjoy it. I'm going to go ahead and give it a B-. So, I'm glad I decided to check it out because I did have a good time. There was a lot of cool references to horror movies. Had some issues with it. Obviously, it's not the best film, but for a horror fan, I would definitely go check this out. It's definitely a fun Halloween flick to just kind of throw on. However, I want to on that note, I don't think I'd watch it again, but nonetheless,